Welcome to the NOFC podcast, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jay, episode 43, Not the Typical Path, with my guest, who really doesn't need an introduction. However, Mr. Ted the Hammer Epity. I'll get into what the hammer means, but Ted, thank you very much for being on. I deeply appreciate you being a guest.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So I want to get into you as a person, talk a little bit about the tales of Ted and some of the experiences you've had, because the path that you led within the state police isn't your typical one. A lot of times guys go up the ladder, they'll get promoted, and they'll go up and want to be either a major or something higher than that. You did something completely different, whether that was by choice or by chance. That's what I want to get into. But before I do, tell me a little bit about you as a person and what got you into policing, and specifically state police.
Okay, a little bit of an oddity. So growing up, my father was a New York City fireman. He decided it was a better life for me and my three sisters to move us out to Long Island, the end of Long Island. So I moved out there. I went to high school out there, and I wasn't a bad kid, but I was mischievous. You know, I did some knucklehead things. So while I was out there, I got into some trouble, with the law. I got arrested for grand larceny out in Suffolk. I was working at this supermarket. It was A&P, and it was back in like 1976, and coffee was like through the ceiling. And me and my friends...
What does that mean, through the ceiling?
The price was through the ceiling.
It was for back then.
Back then, I don't even know, but it was like 3 times the cost. Okay. So we had a thing, and we were working a night shift. So we said, okay, let's make some money. And we would unload the trucks, and we put a case for us and then 2 cases into the store, like that. Anyway, we're making money hand over foot. And until the cops were hiding in the woods, Suffolk County PD, and they swooped in on us, and they arrested 4 of us. Since I was the youngest, we all had attorneys, I took the plea. But if I cut my nose clean, it would be sealed. So that, and then moving forward, a few more things. And then I moved back into Brooklyn, and I was a bouncer at a club, and I was getting into, obviously a lot of fighting and this and that. And I went in front of the same judge a few times, and he finally told me, he says, you could pick 1 or 3 avenues. You can either go into the military, go into the police, or go to jail. Which one do you want? I said, okay, I'll do the police. That's how I got it in my head. Do the police. Okay, I'll do the police, So I started taking the tests. I was still living down there, of course, in Brooklyn, so I'd get the newspaper, The Chief. I take every test, corrections, NYPD, sanitation, everything. So I finally, at that point, I moved out, and I was working for FedEx, and I moved upstate right into Nyack, and in a apartment development. And across the street, there was a trooper that lived across the street, Tony Mikado. I don't know if you know Tony.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Great guy, Marine, great guy. See, he's across the street, and he's always prim and proper. He says, well, what do you do for a living? I said, I work for FedEx. I said, I'm taking all the police tests, waiting to get on. So Tony tells me, he says, why don't you become a trooper? I says, I don't even know what a trooper is, bro. He says, we wear the Stetsons. I said, what, park ranger? You got a pistol. He says, not park ranger. He says, troopers, New York State Police. I said, okay, I'll take the test. So I filed. I took it down in the Armory in Manhattan, in Harlem there. I took the test, and they landed up calling me. Although I almost didn't make it in. I made it into the last class as a refill or retread, whatever they call them. And the reason being was because of what I still call reverse discrimination. It was right then where the state were forced into doing this affirmative action. They had 3 different lists. They had a list for females taking the test.
Mm-hmm.
They had a list for minorities, which was, of course, Black, Spanish, and Asian I don't know how the Asians got into the minority. They're smarter than everybody, but they had their own list. And then white males. So I scored a 96 on that test. I barely made it into the third class. I was in the academy with guys that wrote like 60s and 70s on a thing. And just to show you, the academy class I went to 160th session. We started, I think, with 190 recruits. We only graduated, I think it was 78. The guys were dropping out between DT and everything.
Yep.
You know, people couldn't take the physical aspect of it and the lack of sleep in the academy, and they're waking us up every hour and a half or so. And then the academics blew up everybody. So yeah, got out of the academy, and I came up to Middletown, and it kind of bit me. The whole policing thing kind of bit me. Um, I never worried. Some guys get on a job, when they're brand new. Oh, what I'm going to do if I get into a fight over some kind of marital dispute, or if somebody shoots at me, things of that nature. I'm a little bit afraid. I was never afraid of that stuff. The only thing that frightened the shit out of me was being lost and not being able to get to a place.
Yeah.
1986, there's no GPSs in the car. And you had your Rand McNally map.
Yep.
Okay. And in Middletown, this area is really screwed up here. I mean, my first complaint I got was some weird name road, Toad Pasture Road in the town of Greenville. There's no road signs. There's nothing, no lights. It's dark out. And you don't want to get on the radio and sound like an asshole. So I'm looking this Rand McNally map. It's not on him. And finally, I just drove to somebody's house. I knocked on the door. I said, "You ever hear this road?" They turned white when I knocked on the door. Yeah. And he said, "Yeah, go to the Red Barn, make a right, then go to the cow pasture, make a left." I said, "Oh, I'm fucked." Okay. Well, I did it. I found a place after a while. The only thing I was afraid of was not being able to find, an address I was being sent to.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's it.
So you get to Middletown, and you consider you don't have much fear, so you're a pretty active trooper. At what point, what do you see yourself gravitating towards? Ticket writing, complaints, interdiction, and what got you into whatever it is that drove you?
My whole thing from day one was drug and addiction. I grew up in that culture. I knew, I knew what to look for without even having any kind of police training. From just being around it, uh, would helped out a little bit. I have to backtrack. When I was in college, which I ended up getting kicked out of, by the way, I went to school for engineering. First 2 years to Farmingdale, great. Then I went to Stony Brook, and there was 6 guys to a suite.
Yeah.
Okay, you had 3 bedrooms, and you shared a big living room, kitchen, bathroom. Good. So in that suite, uh, I had one of the guys, this guy named Juan. He was the biggest cocaine dealer on campus. Okay, and then the other 5 of us, we were athletes, but drinking this and that. So we opened up. We built a bar in the living room part. We ran a bar 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making money hand over foot. After a year and a half, ATF sent somebody in to buy drinks. They sent an undercover in.
Yep.
And then we were all brought in front of the dean, and the ATF was there. And they said, once again, 2 choices: leave the school, never come back, you're not allowed, or you don't want to leave, they're gonna book you for this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we left. We all left. What are you gonna do? So when college got cut off,
Yeah.
So I knew from when I was getting on the police, I knew drugs would be my thing, narcotics.
Yep.
And that's what I rolled with. I knew what to look for. Back then you could you sit on 17, and it's a major drug road, 17 up to Elmira.
Yep.
And you look at the plates on the cars coming by. Back then you could tell whether they were Bronx plates, Brooklyn plates. It was easy to read,
Yep.
and then there was a lot of other stuff. Every car has a violation coming up the road, whether it's a light out or plate light out or some bullshit, change of lanes without signaling. So,
Yep.
You knew what to look for.
Yep.
If you were used to that growing up in that culture, so it was easy.
Yeah. So do you think then the deceit? Well, once you had a car pulled over, you were able to identify deceitful behaviors a little bit more acutely than like a regular trooper that probably, or guy, girl, that wasn't exposed to that.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
You know,
awesome.
just some physicalities and also some other, uh, reactions that you get. Uh, back then, I think even today now, any car coming up, especially from the Bronx, and let's say it's two Hispanic people. I'm just going to use that as an example because this example pertains to that type of culture. And it's late at night, and the woman's driving the car and he's not. They're guilty of something because Spanish men are very proud. They're alpha, this and that. They always drive unless there's something in that car. You can almost bank on it, okay? And it's not profiling, it's just knowing,
Mm.
okay? I hate that word profiling because it's such a bullshit hypocritical word, you know? I mean, if you were in a squad where you were doing bank robberies, you wouldn't be hanging outside of 7-Eleven. You'd be casing banks, okay? And then, whatever falls into place with that. So, you know, that was one of the things. And then you have to listen to people. Guys, I see it all the time when I was working. You stop a car and, guys go up to the car and first of all, they have that attitude. I'm holier than now attitude. I'm a troop, a big badass troop. I got to come off like a hard ass, this and that. And, and that kind of disrespectful to the people,
Yeah.
license registration. I never did that. I stopped the car. I said, hey, the reason why I stopped you, call everybody sir or ma'am. Reason why I stopped you, X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Can I please see your license registration? Totally different thing.
It cuts everything. It cuts most of that
Cuts it
friction right out.
right out of the
Yep.
thing. So, and then you listen to people. I stopped a lady, I had a recruit, brand new recruit. I stopped a lady in a BMW uh, coming up 17. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. She had California plates in her car. I stop her and it's raining. And I talked to her and I said, where you coming from? Oh, Manhattan. I had to work late. I work in an office, this and that. Where you going to? Elmira. Okay, first red flag. Second red flag. I said, you work? What do you work for? She says, I work for, some kind of banking financial thing. Her name was Julia. I said, that's funny, Julia. You must be the only person that worked today because it's Columbus Day. It's a national holiday.
She get that oh shit face.
Yeah, I said, well, so, she says, well, I worked, I went in on my own time. I said, we are into. Oh, Elmira, I got a baby shower I'm going to. It's okay. You have anything in the car? No. I said, you mind signing a, whatever the fuck the form was. I can't remember now. But, permission to search the
Yes.
car. So she says yes. So I go in the car, I search the whole thing. There's a present wrapped up baby shower wrapping paper with a bow. I picked this thing up and I said, this weighs about 2.2 pounds and it's
Mhm.
exactly the same size as a brick, you know? And through a few other things, the package got open and it was a kilo of coke. Okay. She got arrested and she didn't want to even bargain. Her boyfriend was Colombian, you know, throw me in jail. Don't let me loose, type of deal. But the thing is that you have to be aware. You got to talk to people. You have to listen to them and you have to analyze, if you have that attitude that I'm, oh my God, walking the street and I'm going to ask you, but I don't really give a shit what you say. You're going to miss out on a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Um, so you were in Middletown for about 3 years. You put in here that you were a defensive tactics instructor. At what point do you become either certified or start doing that?
Before I left the academy, I was asked, okay, you have any interest of, doing this? I was way on top of the thing with the PT test and all that stuff. I think I was second. I think a guy, Darling Glover, edged me out with a few things, but uh, and they knew I had a fighting background with martial arts and boxing. So, a matter of fact, I was banned on doing grudge fights at the end of the academy. Yeah. Uh,
Kicking so many asses?
yeah, they said, "Hey, you're not going to fight. You can't pick anybody to fight. You're done." But anyway, so they asked me, So I went to Middletown. I banged them out with the arrest and this and that. And the sergeant at the time, and I'm going to mention his name because was not a bad guy, but always all for himself. He was a station commander, uh, Bracco. So he gives me my performance rating, and it's average. What the fuck? And I'm waiting to go to DT. You need an outstanding. So uh, Tommy Wood was his zonie and one of the greatest men, God rest his soul, you ever want to meet. And Tommy Wood was a DT instructor. And he came up to me, he says, you're getting ready to go up? I says, I can't go up, zone. He says, why? He says, I banged him. I'm number 2 in the station with arrests, number 2 in the station with DWIs. I says, but the station commander gave me an average. you know. So Tommy says, wait here. He went into Brackel's office, ripped him in the ass up and down, and he changed my performance rating to outstanding. And I went up. I became a DT instructor, had a great time up there. Would go up like a month every class or so, 6 weeks. Uh, I did that school, and then I landed up getting asked to do the defensive tactics instructoral school for the FBI over in Camp Smith, which I did. Another tough school. So I actually have both certifications, New York State and FBI in defensive tactics.
That's cool. So there's some of these epic TED Epity stories. I imagine derived from either Middletown, Monroe, because you do 7 years, and we'll get into that. But after 3, you end up transferring down to Monroe. So let's talk about some of your stories that make you who you are, and then why did your transfer from Middletown to Monroe happen?
Okay. Yeah, like I said, mostly my partner in Middletown was Sean Grogan, and we grabbed everybody's A lines. And I mean, we knocked them dead. We made a lot of great arrests, locked a lot of people up, but we had a lot of fun. So I'll tell you a funny story. There was one of the ladies, the station cleaner, okay, Rosie.
I remember
You
Rosie.
remember Rosie?
I do.
So Rosie's thing was if you had food in the refrigerator, she would go into everybody's food. She would actually open up containers, go into everybody's food. So this plan worked out perfect. So we're out working, trying to get a rest. And a brand new trooper on the desk, John Folaron, he calls us on the radio at like prime time, 1 o'clock in the morning. Hey, 2F57, can you pick up a relay at whatever the signal was?
Yeah, yeah.
And me and Sean looking at this, can you imagine the fucking balls on this fucking new jack? So what we did is we drove into the cemetery in Wayway Yonder, right off 6.
Yep.
Went in the back, and we shot a rabbit. We cut its head off. We went to the diner, got a hamburger bun, and put the head between the hamburger bun. Wrapped it up in aluminum foil with all the condiments and everything. We said, here you go. Here's your relay. He opened it up. He almost threw up, okay? So that was mission 1 accomplished. The second part of that mission was we wrapped it back up and we put it in a refrigerator. Rosie opened it back up. You heard her screaming, apparently, on a beeline from a mile away. It ended up being a big investigation. Yeah. Who put this in the refrigerator, this and that? So, yeah, that was mine and Grogan's, controversy thing. And then, crazy. A lot of things. And then we got Grogan. Yeah, me and Grogan, we got sent up to the Indian detail. Remember when the Indian detail first started?
Yeah.
So we went up there for 2 weeks straight, 12 hours a day. And it was me, Grogan, Johnny Maz. I don't know if you know Johnny Maz, good guy, and a recruit, Orberger, Joe Orberger. He was a recruit.
Yeah.
So we get sent up there, and we're hot sheeting at the hotel. Where we work the midnights, 12 hours, and we go to the room, and the guys that work the daytime, they were sleeping in the beds, and we jump into the beds. They go to work. Because there are no rooms. So we go up there, and the very first night, big mistake. Dick Woods was the sergeant, who was always very shaky. So they put us on a post, the first post down from the Warriors, where the Warriors were in the reservation. So Dick Woods says, The only people that are allowed down this road are officers. Don't go down this road. Biggest mistake he ever made was saying that. He leaves, me and Grogan immediately. Up and down the road on the PA, making all sorts of Indian noises and stuff like that. We would come back. The mosquitoes are so bad, Jason, up there. You could hear them talking. Should we eat them here or carry them into the woods and eat them? Okay, horrible. So we're getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. We built a giant ass bonfire. So we decide that we're going to send Orberger to go get beer, case of beer. So he's not even cut loose yet. He's not even supposed to be driving a troop car. So we send him. Dick Woods comes. Oh, where's the recruit? Where's the new guy? So we sent him for beer, Sarge. Next thing you know, here comes Orberg out of the car. Case of beer. We drove Dick Woods. I think he banged in sick for whatever. That, a million other things that we did. We had a lot of funny antics up there. And, switching plates on the B and C troop cars and, getting everybody confused. And then we landed up absconding one of their cars because our car was having mechanical problems up there. And we went to the AMI and they said, we're not fixing it. This is a Troop F car. So I'm sorry. I thought we were state police. So in the middle of the night, we grabbed one of their cars, put our plates on it. Then we drove home the next day, So Major Lou was the major up there at the time. He called Kohlberg up and he says, I never want to see these two guys up in my troop again. If they come up here, I'm going to have them arrested. And I need you to relay our car back. And Carl Kohlberg was like, these are two of my best men. Go fuck yourself and come and get your own fucking car. Kohlberg was great.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's the Indian Res story. Wow,
by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is an episode purely based on things you would never be able to get away with in the year 2026, and the stories will continue.
Yeah.
So, are you comfortable talking about the tire story?
Oh yeah, sure.
Let's talk about the tire story. Yeah, I've never heard it from the cat's mouth. I've only heard a bunch of different renditions. So I made a signal so that he could make the decision himself, but he's going to tell another story that I heard years ago. Okay, so it's perfect timing because 3 years, in Middletown, I was in the car with Mike Greco, who was a sergeant at the time. We were driving from Middletown to Monroe to hand my transfer in to go to Monroe. We're handing it directly into, I think Mike Kirby was probably his zoning at the time. We're on our way there, and we hear this shit coming over the radio that a guy in Greenwood Lake, he was at a bar, and he just rammed 2 police cars. What happened is this guy was just got out of prison. He did 15 years in the state of Florida. Went back home to Greenwood Lake, went into a bar, started beating the shit. This is a big guy. Started beating the shit out of everybody, breaking the furniture. They called the PD up. The PD pulled up. He was in a tractor, not the tractor trailer, just a tractor. The PD pulled up and he rolled right over them, just plowed right over both cars. A chase ensued. So somehow he made his way to 17, and somehow me and Greco just happened to be right there. We landed up the first car. Okay. And we're following this guy, and it was a shitty night out, freezing rain and stuff like that. We're following every time, and there's a bunch of cars behind us. Okay. And every time we try to go around him, he's trying to slam us off the road. Guy was a violent guy. So next thing I know, we got Bobby Caridi and Rich McCoy Fletch, God rest his soul, I miss him every day. They're together in the car. And they land up, on our right side. So it's both of us and then the tractor. And we're going, and we just can't make headway here. And we're calling up ahead, and there's nobody available to help. The guy lands up getting off 17 onto 84 going westbound. I don't know how he controlled the tractor, but he started doing 360s around
around that curve because it was all ice and stuff. He gained control. He got on 84. So
What time of day is this?
this is it's like maybe 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or something like that. I don't remember the
Yeah,
exact
yeah, yeah.
time,
At
but
night.
at night, yeah. So was it nighttime? I don't think so. I think it started like 5 or 6 o'clock.
All right.
Okay. Uh, so anyway, we're on 84. He's not letting us get around this and that. So Mike Greco convinces me to jump on the tractor. He's going to pull up alongside. So I got one leg out of the window, one arm out of the window, and Mike is holding my gun belt like this. I'm like, get closer, get closer. He's trying to get closer. The guy's trying to ram us. And then finally, something happened in my brain. And I turned around to Mike. I said, Mike, what the fuck do you want me to do once I jump on this tractor? He's like, yeah, come on back in. All right. So I go back in. I'm soaking wet now. So we reach out to, now we're almost into Pennsylvania. We reach out to Pennsylvania State Police, say, hey, can you arrange a couple of tractor trailers rolling, roadblock? They get back and they say, no, as a matter of fact, like 10 miles up the road, the whole road is closed. We have civilians and cars all over the place, multi-vehicle accident. So now we got to get this guy to stop. So that's when we decided to shoot his tires out. And
We?
yes,
Yeah.
we
Collective?
collective.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it was a group effort. Uh, I would, we had the magnums at the time,
Yeah, yeah.
so I would, fire the 6 rounds out of my magnum, and I would hand Mike my magnum, and he'd give me his loaded, and I shoot some more, and he'd load that one up. Anyway, between both our loop loaders, we had no ammo left. Okay. Those truck tires are funny. You shoot, you hit them. They don't go down all the way, and there's a million tires.
Yeah, there are a lot of tires.
So Carides in the other car with Fletch, and he just happened to have his Mini 14.
Yeah.
Okay. So he landed up taking out some of the tires. So the guy eventually stopped. He stopped in Milford, Pennsylvania. And we go to get him out of the truck. And the guy's, he's being combative. He's fighting. Now, mind you, I have to interject this because it's important. At some point, Pennsylvania State Police gets him on the CB. They get him to answer. And he says, you need to stop. He says, I'm not stopping for the New York State Police. They beat the shit out of me 15 years ago. I'm not stopping for them, right? Anyway, so we get out. He's coming out of the cab, fighting this and that. Me and Caridi have him. So, with the resisting, we're trying to cover with the resist. He took a couple of lumps, rightfully so. He deserved them. But while we're trying to do this, the Milford police chief, local police department, maybe they have 2 or 3 patrols. He comes in, he's trying to weasel his way in between me and Bobby. At the same time, we both turn around and like push whoever it was, he went flying on his ass. Okay. So he had a lot of complaints. So we landed up, arresting the guy. We brought him over to state police in Pennsylvania, right off of, right by Dingman's Ferry, somewhere. And they processed him. And they were very appreciative. Pennsylvania State Police rolled out the red carpet for us. A matter of fact, more than our job did. I landed up being put in a photo array on that because he claimed that I was a little excessive. He did land up in the hospital, but anyway. So they put me in a photo array. And of course, he picked me out. I was the only white guy in the whole photo array that the New York State Police put together. So our job, believe it or not, it was Strojo, I believe, called up the state police in Pennsylvania, their major, and the DA was already there. And they said, this guy picked him out of a lineup. We want him arrested. And Pennsylvania State Police said, these troopers, they didn't do anything wrong, and we don't arrest police in our state. And that was it. Took the legs right out from underneath them. But we absolutely did the right thing. Back then, and they've changed the state police rules since then, but back then you were never allowed to shoot at a moving vehicle. Okay? You can take your gun out and use deadly physical force if somebody's attacking you with a baseball bat, a knife, a gun, a deadly weapon, or deadly instrument. But a 3,000 or 18,000 pound vehicle that they're trying to kill you with, you can't shoot at it.
Right.
Ridiculous, antiquated. They've since changed since then. So we absolutely did a great job, and we stand behind it, all of us. We did have to go meet with the superintendent. He requested a face to face with us four,
Mm.
and that's a whole other thing. Greco went in alone because he was a sergeant,
Oh, yeah,
boss,
yeah.
and me, Caridi, and Fletch went in. And Caridi, we call him Commander Caridi, much older than us. And he, Bobby, he threatened me and Fletch. He says, "We're going to this thing. I'm doing the talking. I don't want to hear a word from either of you guys. Just sit there." So I'm sitting. You gotta picture the superintendent's in front of us. I'm sitting directly in front of him, and Bobby's here, Fletch is here to my right, and his superintendent's going on and on and on and on. And he finishes and he says, "My whole career, I've never heard of anything so outlandish." And he's looking at me, you know, and
How do you not say
and
something?
he said, the guy's staring at me like he wants to listen to response. And I'm looking, I got Bobby here, this and that, and he's still looking at me. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "Really?" And then he threw us out of the office. So, yeah, craziness.
Some good stories.
Yeah.
So that is a good transition because during that incident, that was when you said en route to Monroe, they handed in your transfer
Yes.
papers. So what led you to want to go to Monroe from being in Middletown?
Yeah, I mean, I love Middletown. Middletown's the greatest station to break into because you get exposed to everything. I mean, you walk into that station on a sea line and you're already backed up 3 or 4 complaints, and it's real police work. You're doing burglaries, you're doing robberies, you're doing rapes, you're doing homicides, everything.
Yeah.
What you learn in Middletown in a year, you'll never learn in other stations in 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And the guys are all squared away, for the most part. But the uh so what happened is when I transferred, uh I was being fast tracked to get into the bureau. But when I transferred, one of the bosses, and I'm going to say his name because I really don't care, Mickey Cahill, who I was the golden child with, he took it so personal that I transferred down to Monroe, that when he saw me in the garage, he told me, put his finger in my chest. He said, "The biggest mistake you ever made on this job was transferring to Monroe. You're a traitor. As long as I'm here, you're never going to make the bureau." Reason why I transferred to Monroe is because I was going through a divorce at the time. I gave her the house in Middletown. I needed to just get a little space. That's all.
Yeah.
So he took it personal. He held it against me. And in essence, it hurt me,
Well,
a little
we
bit.
were talking before we started, and you
Yeah.
said you were, as a matter of fact, you were pretty friendly with him before that.
The guy loved me. Okay. When I first got on, I just got cut loose. Um, I was the first one to respond to a homicide suicide. A matter of fact, one of our brothers in gray, Gar Clark, it was his niece, Jackie Swart, uh, and she was at a bar in Middletown, and for the life of me, I just can't remember the bar, Happy Club or Smiles or something.
I
I
know
don't
there
know.
was a bar, Smiles. It
Yeah,
might have been
it
Smiles.
might have been Smiles. And what happened is she was seeing a New York City cop, Billy Kukas, and he definitely was a few sandwiches shy of a picnic. This guy, he had mental problems, a lot of disciplinary problems with his job and this and that. Anyway, long story short, she broke up with him, didn't want anything to do with him. Blah 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 blah. He knew she was at this bar. He went there. Uh, Saw her in the parking lot in a car. She was with somebody. She jumped out of the car. He shot her once. She ran into the bar. He went into the bar, shot and killed her, and then killed himself. So I was the first one there. And miraculously, I don't know how I did everything right, but I did everything, right, even above and beyond. I guess I had God on my shoulder. So when the whole crew came out, the investigators, this and that, Mickey Cahill was one of the guys that came out. He was a boss, and he was very impressed. He says, "Hey, you did a wonderful job." He says, "As a matter of fact," he says, "What's your intentions?" I said, "Well, I want to get into the bureau when I have my time on." He says, "Well, don't even hand your abstract. Hand it directly to me when you're ready." So I was in very good with him. He liked me
Yeah.
and he liked my work. And, I did a couple other things. His daughter got into an accident in front of my house where I lived. I was off duty. And, I took care of her and I called the troopers up and, he did the right thing. And of course, he thanked me up and down, this and that. But I mean, you talk about flipping a switch. I went from being a golden child, and because of my own personal problems, I wanted to relocate 12 miles down the road,
Yeah.
same zone, same troop. And he took it personal, the guy. What can I tell you?
Yeah. So he didn't like you transferred down there. So once you get down there, are you still uh, trying to gravitate towards the same type of policing, interdicting still?
Oh, yeah, same thing. And it was even better down there.
Because there's a little bit less complaint work in Monroe.
A lot less complaint work. Okay. So you're afforded a great amount of time.
Yep.
And you're getting people fresh as they're coming onto 17 from the throughway
Yep.
and from the Palisades.
Yep.
So it's like shooting fish in a barrel,
Yeah.
really, if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do you continue that for you do another 4 years there in Monroe?
To another 4 years there in Monroe. What happened is that I made a lot of good arrests there. And one of the really good arrests, I had a brand new guy with me. I believe it was Danny Bien, who was this great guy. I believe it was Danny. And I was working in A9 and he was coming in for he was finishing his C line. So I said, come on, jump in the car. Let's go see if we got something. So, 9 o'clock, 9:30, whatever, we're sitting in the medium. And I see this car come by with Georgia plates on. And it's three black guys in the car. And I got that feeling. And they weren't, look, all three of them looking straight ahead. They knew we were sitting there. We had our lights on, straight ahead. And the car was a mess. The tail lights were cracked out of it and rear plate was hanging on by like one bolt, this and that. So I said, we're going to stop him. So before we stop him, I turned around to Danny. I said, I don't have a good feeling about this. I said, we're going to do it like a felony stop. So I'm going to get on the radio and I'm going to call each one out of the car by themselves. I said, and I'm going to cuff them. I'm going to secure every one of them before you even ask them any questions. And that's what we did. On the radio, one at a time, they come out, hands on the head, lay them down, prone them out on the ground, cuff them, pat them down while Danny was watching the car, call the other one out, this and that. Anyway, all three of them come out. All three of them are cuffed, laying prone, go in a car, okay? Full auto Tech 9 in the rear seat along with an Uzi. And then a Mac 10 in the front, fully loaded, okay? All these full autos, not even semi-autos, and a bunch of handguns loaded up. Brought these guys, and they had drugs on them too. They had, I think, 3 keys on them. Bring them back to Monroe. Run there. They had fake IDs, so ran their prints. Locked them up, Orange County Jail. No bail. Thank God for Judge Teeny Sawyer. He was a Goshen judge at the time. No bail. Locked them up in jail. We got the prints back. 2 of them were wanted for murder first in Georgia. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So all this stuff going on, in great arrests, and I'm going up number 1 on the zone list for the Bureau. I'm not making it onto the troop list because a call's coming down from Albany.
Yeah.
Take his name off the list. Okay. And that's how it worked. That's exactly how it worked. It's bullshit. So to my saving grace, we get a captain. The captains now are assigned to zone headquarters. So we get a captain that comes to Monroe, Jim Shepperly. Okay. You know Jim Shepperly?
Mm-hmm.
I know some guys maybe aren't crazy about him. I love the guy.
Yeah.
Okay. He was a straight shooter. He loved workers and he called it the way it is. And had like, I don't know, 7 years on at the time or something, 8 years. And he calls me into his office and he's got my personnel jacket. And he says, they're just sending a list up. They're getting ready to send a list up to Middletown. He's like, how come your name isn't on it? You're going up the last few years, number 1 on the thing. I tell him the whole story, right? I don't know the guy from a hole in the wall.
Mhm.
He says, get in my car. My personal jacket. I jump in his car. We drive up to Middletown. I think the major was Billy DeBlock, I think, at the time. We walk into the office and Shepperly has my jacket and he says to the major, he says, do you know Ted Epity? And he says, yeah, great trooper, hard worker, blah, 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 blah. He's like, I have a personnel jacket here on him. I want to know why his name isn't going up on the troop list. And Billy the Block, he really didn't have any idea. He says, I don't know. He says, Shepperly, without missing a beat, he says, if his name's not on this list, I'm going to personally help him file an appeal. And my name went up on a fucking list.
There you go.
Okay. And all because of Shepperly, because it's a guy who didn't know me, you know? So I always helped him and held him in high regard for that. And then as soon as that happened, I got a call from New York City, Troop NYC. They were starting in a organized crime. They needed an undercover to organized crime down there. And so my name came up. Somebody recommended me that was down there. So I went down there. I interviewed for the position, you know, and, the captain, Lieutenant Baker, great guy, was there. And Tommy Weber was the captain, great guy. And Harney was the major. All good guys, great bosses. And they're interviewing me and they're saying, well, you're going to have to get a job. You have a trade that you can do, carpenter, loading dock, blah, blah, something like that. It was at the Javits Center. And I said, yeah, I do the carpentry thing. I can fugazi my way into that. And they said, what are you going to do? You're not going to have a gun. You're not going to have a shield. What happens, if you get into it on a loading dock and this and that? I said, well, what happens? I'm going to do what I did before I got on the job.
I'll go back to my default.
What do I care?
Yeah.
So they asked me a few other questions. They knew I was from down there. So there was like 6 other guys waiting in the room to interview. So they walked me out. Bill Napolitano walked me out. He was a senior investigator. And other guys are there. Bill walks back in. He comes back out. He tells the other guys to leave. They call me back in. They say, okay, pick a fake name and you're going to have to get a job at the Javits doing something.
Yeah.
So I went there and I got a job. I got my fictitious license and all that stuff, and I got a job as a carpenter. And it was a good, like 4-year, 3.5, 4-year investigation. And we arrested a bunch of people at the end. And
So when you were hired for that, it was for a specific position and for a specific goal or like agenda? Like they were
it was organized crime. Yeah.
targeting a specific
Yeah, because the
group?
yeah, Genovese and Lucchese crime families were big and still into controlling everything down there. I mean, they were making money hand over foot, So that was the goal, is to kind of infiltrate and be a inside ear, and which I did. And it bared good fruit, the investigation. It ended abruptly after about 3.5 years when I was asked to whack somebody
From them.
from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that they had, they supplied the gun and all that stuff and location, and it was all over. And I was friends with one of the guys, and I said, you whack this guy out. Isn't he your girlfriend's son? He's like, yeah, but he stole my stereo from my house. I said, bro, you're going to take his life because he stole your fucking stereo? I said, all your money you have. Why, you smack the kid around, smack him around a little bit.
Yeah.
No, fuck him. I got to set an example. So the whole thing ended abruptly. And with that,
Whatever you're comfortable with, that let's kind of pause for a second in that little section. Like, what's it like? First, you got to get a job. Then you got to get in. You got to get in. You have to get it in, right? You're not just already in. You have to get it in,
right.
and then you develop these relationships. For me, that's not my cup of soup. you seem like a different personality, but you get no asshole pucker moments. You get not like, oh shit, like I'm dealing with some real shit right now,
No,
or do you just kind of roll with it?
no, I never did. I never it never occurred to me to think about that stuff because I rehearsed my whole story, life story in my head so many times that it was ingrained in me. And it was, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
Undercover work, especially like this, a double-edged sword. First of all, the people that you're with, you're actually becoming friends with them. You're actually over their houses for dinner. You're actually sleeping over their houses. Okay. Uh, and it's an interesting way of life that it's very easy to get used to. Now, during this investigation, my marriage went down the drain. You, you,
do you think it's because of that?
you know what it is? You're living
Contributing
a whole
factor?
other life.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And, you know, your significant other's sitting home. I wasn't making, I was only making it home twice a week,
yeah.
so it wasn't like I do my thing and then go home every night, this and that. So making it home like maybe twice a week at most, you know? So it's like an adrenaline thing. The more you get entrenched, the more of a high you get from it. I guess that's the word I want to say. And the challenge. I'm always up for a challenge. I'm like a junkie when it comes to challenging myself
Yep.
and doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, you live a whole you're living a whole totally different life. And when that investigation ended and I had to come back into the fold with the state police, they asked me where I wanted to go, and I told them DETF. I figured that'd be a good fix, down in New York. And which it was, but it's a hard comeback
Mm.
because I was accountable to nobody.
That was going to be one of my questions. So when you're entrenched in this and you're linked in with this family, like what kind of accountability do you have?
None.
None. How does anybody know what you're doing and when do you check in?
My reports. I do a daily report.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, my reports. My vehicle was wired, so I had tapes from that. Uh, I refused to wear a wire on me. I only wore a wire once, and it was these old shitty seabirds, I think they were called, or something. It was like a metal box, like this big. And when I went to go join a local 20 in Staten Island, he said, "Oh, you got to wear this." So we get it. I worked with Manhattan DA's office rackets. I had ADA assigned specifically for me. So I said, "I don't know about that," and I said, "All right, you know what? I'll give it a try." So I stuffed it down my underwear, and I went to the meeting, and I had a hook to get into that local. Okay, that's the only way you can get into the local. I had a hook, and I had to pay $10,000 to the business agent just to let me into the door that he pocketed. So I go there, and it was hot in the fucking place, and I'm getting a little bit moist down there, and that fucking thing was burning my nuts off. Okay, once it gets moisture,
Yeah.
those things
They
get
get
hot.
hot.
I went into the bathroom, and I just luckily the window was open a fucking window, and I threw it out of the window. You know, and I went back into the meeting. That was the first and last time that I ever did that. But yeah, so 10 grand, which the Manhattan DA gave me
Okay.
back.
I was gonna
Uh,
ask that. Hopefully that wasn't your money.
No, all my money that I spent gambling because I used to go to Atlantic City all the time with these guys, and
Did we reimburse you for that? For the money? Or did
oh,
you have to?
no, I put in, and they would give me,
Yeah, yeah. That's what
the
I'm saying.
money back, and they would lay out for everything, the 10 grand, this and that. At the end of the investigation, after 3.5, almost 4 years, I landed up writing a check to the Manhattan DA's office for $500,000, money earned as a carpenter,
Huh.
more money than I made as a trooper. Okay, so they got their money's worth.
Yeah.
Uh, And, when it all came to an end, they wanted to do, uh, no knock warrants on everybody early in the morning, have
Yeah.
the news there, this and that. And I told the ADA and Morgenthau, great district attorney who was there, I told him, I'm going to have absolute amnesia when it comes to testify if you do it that way.
Yeah.
Well, what way do you want to do it? I said, at this point, they already know that I was an undercover. I'm going to call each one of them individually and let them come down on when they're ready to be processed. I don't want to embarrass them in their homes. I'm too close to them.
Yeah.
And every one of them came down. Not one of them said no, you
Hmm.
know? So, which they appreciated. I bumped into quite a few over the years. And you know what? They all thanked me. They said, "Glad it was you. You know, you did your job. We get it, but you treated us like human beings, like gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's okay. You know, I'm good with that."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
So then
that investigation wraps up and you DETF, you head over
DETF,
to?
yeah, head over to DETF and got into a real good group, Freddie Cabell's group, T33 Task Force Group. Freddie, great guy, great boss, great guy, very knowledgeable, especially with Title III investigations. So, real good. And go there, and me and one of the agents, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't know if he's still working, but a great guy. Well, we get a Russian CI that comes in and for no reason at all gives us information on a huge ecstasy ring with Israeli nationals. Hooks us up, gives us the connection. So me and the agent, we go make an undercover buy uh, for ecstasy. I think we bought 1,000 hits or something. At, I don't know, $8 a hit or something like that. And then we make a second buy. So now gives us, you know, the Title III investigation on their phones. This investigation bared the greatest fruit. It was the biggest ecstasy case DEA has ever seen.
Oh,
You know, when it was done,
right.
we got 6 other states up on wires. One of them was Arizona, which Sammy the Bull got arrested on. That was our case.
Oh.
We went to Israel on the case. We got them involved. And it was coming from Amsterdam to Israel and then to the States. So the Israelis were great. The IMP, Israeli National Police, well, they're right on board. You know, these guys were changing their phones like every other week,
Yep.
every week. By the time, you know, you do the whole AFIA thing and they're
It's in
already
their
on
phone.
another
Yeah.
phone. We got Israel involved and they were like, yeah, no problem. What's the numbers? 5 minutes later, they're listening to all the phones and feeding us the information.
Huh.
So we arrested on our end 60 people on that ring. And the amount of money, you can't even imagine the tens of millions of dollars that they were making every week.
I bet. What's this, early to mid 90s?
This was 1999, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 1999. So yeah, huge case. It was really good, very big case. So then, you know, after that, uh, and it was a hard adjustment for me coming back into the fold with
Yeah.
being organized and stuff, you know. I fought it a little bit, but everybody around me knew where I came from, and they were great. I mean, my boss down at the task force at the time, the captain was Jack McCabe, great guy. You know, he knew what the deal was,
Yep.
this and that. So, and then after the task force, I went over to uh, SIU, uh, South Florida Impact. That was with Miami Beach and
Okay.
OCCB and state police, you know. And I finished my, you know, 10 years with that.
So SIU and that unit there, what was that focusing on for? Because we do have a few non-law enforcement listeners, so maybe I want to say dumb it up, but tell them
Yeah,
in a sense
layman's
or
terms.
layman's terms.
So
Thank you.
it was major money laundering, major narcotics, nothing street level. So it was directly dealing with Colombians and Dominicans, and sometimes Mexico. Okay, and it was loads coming up, and we would form cases on them, money pickups, and and follow the people and start cases on them. And I mean, we made a lot of good arrests. We're, you know, making arrests, 96 keys of heroin. You know, we're doing, you know, million and a half money seizures, this and that. We were very active, very successful with that whole thing. Uh, and one of the most interesting cases, which we still laugh about it, and I could say it. It wasn't even our case. We're sitting in Manhattan waiting for one of these money pickups to happen, and many times they don't happen. You know, you're waiting
Yeah.
around for hours on end. So waiting, beautiful summer day. We're all bored waiting for this pickup is already 2 hours late. So we go and we notice this Colombian woman, very healthy chested Colombian woman, with a, tiny waist and this and that. She's got this pink half shirt on, okay, and no bra or anything like that.
Okay.
A little juicy, the company juicy. She's wearing this thing and a pair of shorts, and she's turning heads all over the place, including ours. Now we have totally lost interest in looking for a pic, and we're just watching her, and we see her go into a bank on one corner, and then go to the bank on the next corner, then cross the street, go to another bank, because she's smurfing.
Mm.
She's smurfing money. Smurfing money is when uh, money launderers do it. You make small deposits of under $10,000
Mhm.
in banks, so they don't have to do a SAR. Anytime you deposit 10,000 or more, the bank automatically has to do a SAR. It's a suspicious activity report, which gets filed. So if you do under 10, they don't have to. They don't have to do that. So watching, we're like, look at this. This one is smurfing. So we get on foot and we're following her. We followed her to like 12 banks, followed her back to her hotel, where she was staying, and we approached her in the lobby, and we got our tins out. So, what are you doing? She's all, I'm here visiting. Oh, yeah. Where you staying? I'm on the third floor, blah, blah. Take us up to the room.
Yeah.
Takes us up to the room, opens the door. The husband's on the other end, suitcases of money. He's cursing around in Spanish. We arrest everybody. We got 1.3 mil out of that apartment.
Just
But on okay,
just because you're following tail.
right? Just because the way she looked, it was hilarious.
That happens.
Yeah,
Uh, so you do 10 years in that unit.
yeah.
Obviously that's one of your notable ones. Did you, when you retired, what year was it, first of all?
2010.
2010. You were an investigator. You never went to senior or any other rank.
No, I didn't. Senior was a funny position when I was coming up. Seniors weren't getting paid overtime. They didn't get paid overtime till much later. Uh, and I never pushed for the senior thing because it would have been a huge pay cut.
Yep.
I mean, we were getting so much overtime because we were having so many outstanding arrests that back in 2010, mind you, okay, my final average salary was 167
Oof, that is a
in
lot of overtime.
2010. Yeah. If I would have become a senior, forget about it.
Yeah.
You're not going to make anything. Which is, yeah, it was a lot of money considering that when I started with the state police, my salary was exactly 17,301. Okay.
I was going to say somewhere around 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
17.
17,301.
So,
And then they furloughed us for 3 weeks,
yeah.
to give us some money back in the end.
Yep.
And then offered us a low interest loan to if we needed money because they didn't pay us. Unbelievable. You can't make this shit up.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was going to say. You can't make this
You
shit
can't
up.
make it up.
So I'm more than willing to talk about more stories, but I've heard stories since you retired in 2010. Have you worked at all, or you just stayed retired?
Pretty much stay retired. I'm a metal fabricator, so I do custom motorcycle parts.
Okay.
I'm the president of a motorcycle club, which is a law enforcement and military club.
Yep.
So that keeps me busy. I do some odds and ends with, a bodyguarding job here or there.
Yeah.
Very choosy.
Yep.
With that. Yeah.
So I see a lot of people tell me you're quite the traveler and you do a lot of like camping and tenting and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Is that like a passion of yours? And like what's that all about? Is it just you're connecting with nature, or
It's my disconnect with the human race. There you go, in a nutshell. Okay.
That's plenty enough for me.
It forces me to not look at this dopey cell phone. I don't even know where it's in my pocket, my cell
Yeah.
phone. And it just makes me do nothing.
Yeah.
It was my newfound activity of getting into that kind of Zen fucking state for a
Yeah.
little bit. Okay. I tried fishing. A matter of fact, when COVID first hit,
Yep.
I said, okay, everything's closed. There's nothing to do. I used to fish a lot when I was a kid. I said, I'm going to get back into fishing and I'm going to go to a spot that I know in the Walk-Hill River because every once in a while I'd have my fishing pole in a troop car and it was cast right down the road from the station. So I'm going to tell my wife, I want to go and just, throw the line out, see if I catch anything. I got nothing else to do. So I go down to the Walk-Hill River, Midway Road entrance, right across, pretty much across from the hospital, right down the road from the barracks. I cast the line out, reel it in. I cast it out again, and it snags on something, right? So I'm like, oh, favorite lure. Look at this second cast. So I grab the line. You're supposed to grab the line and you hold it against the pole and you walk backwards.
Yeah.
And then you see if it moves. You walk to the left, to the right. So I walk backwards and the thing is budging a little bit. I say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to lose this lure. Walk back, reel in. Walk back, reel in. I do it about 5 times. The fifth time, reeling in, a head pops out of the water. I hook the body.
Oh, Jesus.
Some relaxation, right? So I got 8-pound test. The river's running. I'm holding the guy, okay, by the 8-pound test by the line, and I'm fumbling with my cell phone. For some reason, I can't remember Middletown's number. So I call the dopey 911 line,
Uh,
right? 911. I get an operator on the line, this lady. And I said, listen, I'm a retired investigator, blah, blah, blah. Here's my location. I said, I was fishing. I hooked a body, deceased male, uh, and I need you to call up Middletown State Police. They're right down the road and have ID come out and blah, blah, blah. She says, how do you know he's dead? I said, I'm a retired investigator with the New York State Police. Not breathing, bloated, smells. He's dead. You want to make the fucking call or what? That's in my words. And she never made the call. I'm waiting 15 minutes. I'm holding this thing so the line wouldn't break. Finally, I remember Middletown's number. I call up Middletown. I make the phone call. Everybody comes over. And uh, uh, I believe that one of the bosses that came out was Pete Sirigliano.
Yep.
At the time. I believe. I think I had Pete as a recruit in the academy too. So he comes out, hey, Teddy, how you doing? I say, great, sir. I said, "Hey, it's my relaxation. What do you think of this? You know?" He started laughing, shaking his head. I said, no matter what happens here today, that's my lucky lure. I got to get that lure back. I don't want to. He says, I'll make sure you get it back. So
well, that is not what I expected out of going down that avenue. You have a story for every Jesus. I hooked a
you
dead
go
body
figure. You
in a
go
fucking
figure.
Walk Hill River.
You know?
That was during COVID, 21,
Mhm.
2021, somewhere around
Right
there?
when it hit. And it was kind of, it was kind of, I wasn't happy that, it was like a 32-year-old kid. I wasn't happy that he died, but I was happy that his parents got closure
Sure.
because they reported him missing like 10 days ago in Middletown, city of Middletown. And he was a little disturbed.
Did
And
he end up committing suicide? Or
no, what happened is he rode his bicycle all over the place. He's riding his bicycle along the Walk Hill River, but all the way up on top, lost control, went tumbling down the hill, hit his head on a rock,
Oh,
which killed him. Okay. And then with all the rains we had, the water came up and swept him down the river.
oh,
So there was no hanky panky. When they did the
Yeah.
autopsy,
yeah.
no water in the lungs or
Yeah.
anything like that, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
the parents got closure, which I thought was, listen, it's horrible for the parents. You should never have to bury one of your children,
Right.
but at least they know that he's not somewhere getting abused or,
Right.
stuff like that.
So my interpretation of you, not knowing you, maybe meeting you once or twice in the hallways, not having any engaging conversations with you, was a very abrupt and hard person. Which, not saying you're not, but one of the things that stuck out to me was not too long ago we went to our little retirement breakfast, and you stood up and made a little prayer
Yeah.
slash speech, and it surprised me that you are able to have I got to be careful the way I say this, but two polar opposites. In other words, you can come across abrasive, but you have a really kind heart. Um, I don't know if you remember the story that you shared, but it was kind of interesting about the breast cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how you can navigate between such polar opposites, but that's very interesting skill to have, like to be able to be so like harsh on one end, but to be so kind and caring on the other.
Here's what the deal is, okay? Uh, I'm a firm believer God puts you on this earth and gives you an agenda. He makes educators, he makes protectors, okay? People all sorts of everybody is predetermined what they're supposed to do on this earth, okay? Uh, what a lot of people never realize about me, I'm probably going to piss a lot of holier than thou people off when I'm saying this, but I don't care. They'll give a shit less. But uh, I'm a very religious person. I say my prayers multiple times throughout the day. I thank God. I pray multiple times. When I have dead time, I'll say a prayer. At nighttime, I always say a prayer. I'll read the Bible. Okay. Uh, I don't believe in the institution of church because to me, that's an institution. It's just another business. And I don't need that. Your spirituality, your faith comes from within you. I don't need a priest to stand up. And I'm wondering, is this guy a pedophile? Is he a hypocrite? What's the deal with it? He's not better than I am.
Yeah.
Okay. He decided to become a priest. Okay. Who knows why? Okay. But you hear a lot of horror stories with priests, and I'm not going to judge all priests.
Right.
Okay. I've met some very nice priests, but the whole church thing, to me, it's a business. Okay. You want to be religious? Say your prayers, try and live a good life. Okay. I try and live a good life. I am a very upfront person. The one thing you'll always know about me is exactly where you stand. I'm not one that talks behind somebody's back, okay, that I wouldn't say in front of their face.
Yep.
Uh, and I don't like beating around the bush either. I just come right to it. As far as the job goes, you're here to do a job. You got to separate the other part of you from the job part of you. I never brought any of the miserable stories home
Yep.
to my wife, any of my wives.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, I don't want to weigh them down with that. We have a lot of horrific things that we see
Yep.
in police work, and those things are best kept in the back of your mind. You go home, you tell your wife, your kids, you tell them the funny stories, stuff they can laugh about. The
Yep.
bad stuff, you got to lock it away inside. Okay. That's the way it has to
Or
be.
maybe share it with the person that you experienced it with,
Exactly. Okay.
or somebody that also has experienced
Yeah.
it with.
So, I'm a firm believer in God and Jesus Christ. And, that's my savior.
Yeah.
That's who kept me safe all these years.
So, two things. The way you described you as a person, I honestly felt like you were describing me. I'm very similar in the way I am. Is I'm gonna let you know how you stand with me. Sometimes I think where I have a problem is being politically correct about it or making sure everybody's feelings are intact. But I'm gonna let you know if I like you or not.
Right.
Like I'm gonna tell you how I feel. So that was interesting the way you said that because when you said it, I felt like you were describing me. The other but that wasn't really a question, as a statement. The other thing I wanted to ask you was when you were growing up, did you grow up in the church?
Oh, yeah.
You did. Okay. So
Oh,
you
my
had that
God.
okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I grew up Greek Orthodox,
Okay.
and there was no, unlike the Catholic Church, there was no choices of which service you were going to go to. The Greek Orthodox Church, the Mass is 3.5 hours long. Okay. One Mass Sunday morning. And when I was growing up, of course, we all had to be altar boys and, no air conditioning. And your mother dressed you in a suit and a tie, and then you put these heavy robes on, no air conditioning. I mean, you were sweating your balls off the whole time, miserable. And, thank God, a friend that I grew up with who lived on the same block as me, we were altar boys together. Okay. And I'm going to say that there's no doubt we were the worst altar boys ever to exist back then and moving forward. We were horrible. The priest hated us, used to curse us in Greek. We almost lit the altar on fire one time. We were just fucking up left and right, but long mass, but you had to, every Sunday you had to, and then you had to go to Sunday school and, the whole bit. My grandmother was a religious school teacher and we all lived in the same household, grandparents, mother and father. I'm first generation here, so yeah, we grew up that way. I'm glad that I did all that because then that gave me the knowledge later on in life to be able to say wholeheartedly that I'm not a believer in the institution of church.
Mm.
I'm just not. It's just a business to me.
Yeah. So you brought this up, and
Yeah.
so now as you're talking,
Yeah.
I have a question. So you communicate in a very open manner, throw bombs out here and there, same as me. It's a normal type of conversation we would have at a bar.
Right.
You're not holding back because of anything. There are certain sides of the coin that say if you're that devout and that religious that you shouldn't speak in that manner. How how do you how do you feel about that? You can still be devoted and be able to curse.
Cursing. God doesn't know curses. Curses is a man-made language.
Yeah.
Fuck. It's a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Right.
What is it? That's man-made.
Yeah.
Everything is man-made. You think God cares that you're using those words?
He cares about your actual actions.
He could care less.
Yeah.
These are man-made things. Okay. What man has created, what he is preaching that, well, God doesn't want you to do this. How do you know what God wants you to do? Were you living 10 zillion years ago, walking side by side?
Yeah.
I mean, the commandments are good. Live by the commandments. Be a good person. When I'm working, all the years I worked in the city, okay, and even to this day, if I see a homeless person and I have money in my pocket, I give it to them. I have guys, what do you give them? They're going to buy drugs. I say, I don't care what they're buying. They're out on the street. Who knows what they went through in their life to put them on the street? And if they want to buy a vial of crack and it's going to make their life great for about 3 or 4 hours, then all the power to them, Always take money out of my pocket and give it to the homeless.
Yeah.
All right. I have a soft spot for the homeless. My grandmother, she took me to my first movie when I was 8 years old, 7 years old or something like that. I was still living in Astoria, Queens. We walked to the movie theater. My very first movie, I saw The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews, 1967 or something like that. And you're passing by and there was a bum on the street begging for money. And my grandmother took 2 quarters out of her pocket. 2 quarters in 1967 or whatever. That's like a couple dollars,
Yeah.
So I said to her, in Greek, because she mostly just spoke Greek. I said, why did you give the bum, your money? She says, you always have to be kind and humble to everybody you meet. That's number one. Okay. Number 2, you never know if this is Jesus on this earth walking around testing you. I said, okay. Yeah. That's Greek. Yeah is Greek. I said, okay. And I learned a lesson back then. And she was right. You have to be humble and kind to everybody you cross paths with until they give you a reason not to.
Yeah.
And when they don't, when they give you the reason, then you got to come full force.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tell people what's on my mind.
Yeah.
I don't hold back. I never did hold back.
Quite honestly, for those that are able to do it, me personally, I think it's healthier. I think it's a healthier way of communicating, but a lot of people don't like that because they get the unfiltered truth on how you actually feel. Some people can't handle that. But here we are. And so you do a lot of traveling and camping. Growing up, did you have siblings?
3 sisters.
3 sisters? Your youngest, oldest, middle?
I'm in the middle.
You're
Yeah.
in the middle.
Yeah.
And you have any children?
Yeah. I have 2 and my wife has 3.
Okay.
All great kids, all educated, all on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 of them are cops.
Oh, yeah.
New York City cops.
Okay.
Yeah. The other one's a fireman in Vermont. My son is a fireman in Burlington, Vermont.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, any other stories or things that you would like to talk about throughout
You got about 10 hours?
Well, we're still an hour and a half behind Johnny Cox, so we got a lot of time to go if you want. I know you have a lot of stories. You told a bunch of really good ones. I think you've set the tone as who you are as a person. I just want to give you an opportunity if you thought of anything that came up and while you were talking that you wanted to share, by all means.
Yeah, like I said, I could go on and on. The state police was a very good fit for me. Jason, when I tell you from day one, I never woke up and said to myself, oh, I got to go to work today. It was never a job for me. It was a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to take days off because I was afraid I was going to miss something.
Yep.
It's the greatest job in the whole world. Every job has their asshole bosses and this and that. What are you going to do? People are people. Just because you have a position doesn't make you anything special or anybody magic.
No.
This is what people have a hard time with in the general public, civilians. They think, oh, you're a cop. You should be perfect. No, I'm a cop. That's my livelihood.
Right.
But nobody's perfect.
No.
Okay? People make mistakes, sometimes poor judgment. I want to touch on just a little something here that I have to get straight because a lot of people don't notice. They'll read over the course of a year, maybe 4 or 5 bad police shootings.
Right.
And not bad shootings,
Right.
100% bad shootings. Police get prosecuted. They do their thing. Bad shootings. So, this is a systemic problem, police brutality and that. Uh, they don't know that on any given day in the United States, there are over 800,000 employed law enforcement officers handling millions of complaints every day. So when you hear 4 or 5 bad shootings, think of the magnitude of the number and what percentage that is.
Right.
It's not even a percentage that can register.
Right.
Okay. So, and people need to realize that this kind of stuff. Don't take a couple things, and it's not a systemic problem. It's
Right.
an individual
And,
problem.
you're not promoting it. You're not agreeing with it.
No.
Because when these do happen, these bad shootings
Right.
happen, like, let these officers be accountable for making poor decisions. But the point that you're trying to make is this isn't a nationwide systemic
It's
problem
not
that we're
systemic.
having, where
Yeah.
every other day a cop's randomly going up to somebody and shooting them because they're either racist or
Right.
they have nothing else better
Yeah,
to do.
it's utter nonsense. The media is the biggest devils.
True.
They're the biggest. If Satan lived on earth, there would be media, because they have no accountability. They want to get the story out first. They don't care whether it's right or wrong. And when they find out it's wrong, you don't hear them going back on a thing saying, "Oh yeah, we were wrong."
They don't retract. Like, they don't retract or
No,
they
no,
don't fix
nothing.
it. It's just,
So
it is what it is.
I say don't even. I haven't watched the news in a decade.
I don't like to either, for
Yeah.
that exact reason.
I watch it. When I was growing up, you got the news 2 ways. You got the Morning Post, and then you got the Evening Post in a
Yep.
newspaper.
Yep.
You read it, and most of that stuff was factual. But
Yeah.
now it's, with the internet and stuff, it's poison.
Right. So there are 2 questions I try to ask everybody, and they're going to be flip-flop questions. So the first one, I'll start with the bad. So if you had any time of your, so what'd you do? 24? Was it 24 years?
Yeah,
20
24. I wanted to hit 25, but they put me out. Okay. What happened is when I blew my shoulder out tackling like this 6'7" guy in the Bronx on a heroin arrest. Okay. That was 2008. So I had hospital special surgery. Did my shoulder. I was supposed to be out of work for, like, I don't know, 5 months or something in rehab. I went home. I was driving myself nuts. I rehabbed myself, and I went back to work after 2 months. I didn't get a letter. I didn't get anything. I just showed up at work and I said, "Oh yeah, everything's good." I said, by the time Albany finds out about it, it'll be too late. 2 years later, Albany found out about it. 2 years later. So he said, "You never got your letter to come back to full and strenuous duty." I says, "Oh, well, I didn't know, played stupid.
Yeah.
You need to come up to Albany tomorrow." I went up there, the old physician up there. They took some slides and this and that. He said, "Oh, you can never go back to work with your shoulder like this." I say, "Doc, I've been working for the last 2 years with my shoulder like
Yeah.
this." It's like, "Not anymore." I went back home. The next morning, I got a call from Albany. "You got 5 days to hand in all your shit.
Oh, geez.
You're retired." And that was it. I got 2 extra years out of them,
I didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah.
So then, what would be, of your 24-year career, your least favorite time or position, if you could? A lot of people don't. To give you a little backtrack, hardly anybody, like, sinks into that. There's a few people that might give a few, like, brief periods of time, and it's okay if you can't really identify that. But the other end of that question is going to be, what was your absolute favorite, if you could identify that?
Okay, so I can honestly say I really had no unfavored times working. I've had a blessed career. I've had a lot of fun in my career. So I can't say I had any real down times. You have your little bumping heads with,
Yep.
some bosses, but they all get resolved anyway. So yeah, none.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, either a time or a position that you felt like 100% full fulfillment. Is there one that you could identify there?
Well, I'll start off by saying that there is, during my time frame, I don't know how it is now, there is no better position than being a uniformed trooper. Truly, God's roaming the earth.
Yeah.
Okay. You have the luxuries of picking exactly what you want to do. I mean, yeah, you have to answer jobs when they come your way, but yeah, being a trooper is phenomenal. Um, as far as being an investigator, I never spent any time in a back room, so I don't know what it's like to be tortured with
Yeah.
caseloads
Yeah.
and this and that. So, I mean, my whole thing was from day one, undercover until the day I left. So I'd go to work like this with a pair of shorts on, a t-shirt,
Yep.
uh, and yeah. So the most fulfilling time I had was probably my time doing the organized crime.
Yeah. I can see why.
Yeah.
You're getting yourself into the family, you're developing relationships, and doing a pretty big case there as well, on top of that.
Yeah, yeah, well, it's just, it gives you for 4 years, you live like somebody else,
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
you know? Yeah.
So when I posted your little preview to the retired page, a few people mentioned the desk. What was the comment?
Hated it. Yeah. I told
So what's the story behind that? Because I could hear it coming out of your mouth now that I've talked to you for a little bit. But what's the back on that?
okay, so I was in, I think I was in Middletown, no, I think I was in Middletown. Uh, yeah. No, I think I was in Monroe, and, I didn't the desk was the plague for me. Desk, forget it, and I forgot who it was, uh, but they said one of the bosses, I don't know if it was, Maney or whoever the hell it was, one of the sergeants. He says, "Oh, you gotta work the desk today." I said, "Trooper of my caliber should never be stuck on a desk." I said, "I'm not working a desk." And that was it.
So the story for those that don't know, I posted Ted's preview to one of our retired pages, and that was the comment that they made, and I just wanted him to tell the story, which is completely makes sense based on your personality. But I do agree with it. That's kind of felt like a prison sentence in a way.
I got one other thing
Yeah.
when we're on the lines of kind of disobeying,
Yeah.
orders, which
Yeah.
I did a lot of.
Right.
Okay. So you have to picture this. Monroe, me and Bobby Creppin, we were hitting them hard. We had our own little squad. You know Bobby, right?
Hmm.
Okay, he had the dog and everything.
Yep.
So all we did was drugs. I didn't write any tickets. The only tickets I wrote was if you had drugs in the car. So maybe 10 tickets a month. Okay. Uh, so we're working a C line. And I walked through the front door and Marty Hansen was his only. And don't really like Marty. Anyway, I'm not a fan of Marty. Uh, for many good reasons, I'm not. And we won't get into that here. But anyway, so I walked through the door and Marty, who was his only, he says, "You're on a speed detail today." I just looked at him. I said, "No, I'm not." I walked down. I got changed. "Hey, we go." I said, "No, it's not happening. You got a whole station full of guys here that do nothing but write tickets. Put them on it." Unbeknownst to me, while I'm downstairs changing, Creppin walked in. Marty turns around to him and says, "You're on a speed detail today." And Creppin's like, "Fuck, I am." "No, I'm not." He goes down, he gets changed. Marty calls the major up to complain. Me and Crep we're already out on 17 trying to get some drugs. So we got it over the radio, 2F8 and whatever Bobby's cars, report to the major's office, ASAP. So we go down there, and who the hell was the major? I think it was maybe Al Martin or somebody. Don't hold me to that. But we go down. No, it was Jimmy O'Donnell.
Hmm.
Okay. So we go down there and we walk in and, Major, how you doing? He's like, "What are you guys doing to Marty?" You know, it's just, it's unreasonable, Mage. He's not, guy's unreasonable. Well, I said, "What do you do? Call down here and crying?" He said, "Yeah, he called down here and cried on my shoulder." He's like, "All right, you came and saw me. Go ahead, go out on the road, do what you got to do." And that was it,
Mm.
So, uh, yeah, just a lot of things. Me and Marty worked together as troopers.
Yeah.
Uh, but just a lot of things, uh, he was no ball of fire as a trooper. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, he decided to climb up the ladder, and that's good. You know, go up the ranks. You know, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, and a nice guy.
Yeah, I like Marty.
A very nice guy.
I like Marty. Yeah.
Okay, but just a couple of things like what got on my nerves. I was working A-line desk in Monroe. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he was coming back from Albany. He was stationed up in Albany. So picture this. It's just him and me comes into the station. Now, this guy been over his house, his wife Annie, this and that, these troopers. I said, "Hey, Marty, how you doing?" And he goes like this. I'm like, "No, that's straight. Your ornaments are straight." He's like, I said, "You're kidding me. Just me and you." I said, "All right." Salute him. The next day, I was in Middletown. I walk into the BCI office, and it's Eddie Rasso, Stevie Nevins, and Marty's there. I walk in. "Hey, Eddie, how you doing? Hey, Steve, how you doing?" I go to salute Marty. "Oh, you don't have to salute me." I said, "That's not what you said last night. You broke my fucking balls, you know?" So just little things. In the whole scheme of things, Marty's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't dislike him. He's a nice guy. But he did a few things that, worked underneath my skin a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Unnecessary things.
And well, to your point, like you have 20 plus years on this job. Those interactions are going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially for guys that have similar personalities than me and you.
Right.
You're that type of person, which is why you're going to have two sides of that coin. There are people going to absolutely love Ted Epity, and there's people like, "Oh, all that guy did was challenge everything they wanted him to do because he was too good for whatever it is."
Because I don't like rules. And,
exactly.
Yeah, so that was my thing. Like I said, just to elaborate on it and just to clarify it, I think Marty's a great guy. I always thought he was a great guy. It's just that a couple things rub me the wrong way. So it was like,
yeah. I did an episode where I actually talked about some bosses that were still on the job, and then some up in Albany that I had some bad encounters with for specific reasons, and I kind of got a little bit of a slack for that. So I ended up removing it, but it's hit or miss. People get sensitive sometimes.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Yeah. So
in any event, so it sounds so. Currently, 2026. What are you doing? I know you said you're doing some traveling, but are you still doing your camping and stuff?
Yeah, I don't like the summer camp. Too hot, too many mosquitoes, and too many bear wandering around. I like winter camping. The colder the better. Snow, great. And it's relaxing for me. I'll camp overnight or 2 nights. Sometimes I'll travel to different places and camp mostly by myself.
Yeah.
I cook some things on the thing. I have a couple of bourbons, couple of cigars. I mean, to me, it's great. And then running the motorcycle club Nom Nights, my chapter, which I founded, Iron Horse chapter, we're based in Beacon on the other side of the river. Keeps me very busy. And we do a lot of traveling with that club too.
What got you into that?
Okay, so I always knew Bobby Caridi was in the Nom Nights.
Yeah.
I've been riding a Harley forever. And Bobby didn't even know I rode a Harley all the years we worked together. Anyway, retire, and he's retired. We go to John Lagakos' wedding from the Monroe Diner.
Okay.
So we're at the wedding, we're at the same table, and Bob is going on, we're talking. My wife is there, Terry. And somehow Harleys come up. And Bob looks at me and says, "You ride?" I said, "Yeah, bro. I'm riding since I'm freaking 16 years old." He says, "You have a Harley?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, why didn't you ever tell me? Come and join the club, the Nom Nights. I said, "Bob, I was too young for Vietnam." He's like, "You don't have to be in in Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's called Nom Nights, Nam, because Nam Vietnam vets started it.
Yeah.
And so that represents military. Knights for Blue Knights, which is police. It's a military and law enforcement club." I said, "I never knew that."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay." So I went to the meeting and I joined. Hung around, prospected.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. I drove Bob a little bit nutsy, like I did when we were working.
How big of a club is it?
Big. It's international.
Is it?
Yeah, we have about 1,400 members.
Oh, wow.
All the way down from Florida and Arizona, all the way up the eastern seaboard and into Canada. And all we do is we raise money all year round. Most of us are all non for profit, 501c.
Yep.
We raise money all year round and we give it away to veterans
That's awesome.
and law enforcement if
Yeah.
they need it, but mostly
Right.
veterans.
Yeah. No,
It's a
that's
great
awesome.
club, great
Yeah.
motorcycle club.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I deeply appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences with me. We were going back and forth, and we're kind of dibbling and dabbling on whether we're going to do it remotely or here. I'm definitely appreciative that you came here and did it. Kind of give a different dynamic to the interview.
Right.
But I appreciate you coming and sharing your experiences.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you having me, bro.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, good.
Anybody sticking around, I appreciate you. Please like, comment, share. Get it out there. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to share all these veterans and retired guys' stories, so that the newer generation can see what it was like back in the day working. My goal is to also have some younger guys on, to give a fresh experience. So we'll see how that goes. Once again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.